Very quickly, let's get into the market picture now. It's been a very mixed bag across the board for most of the indices, particularly out in Asia. That started off with a bit of a mixed portion there. Only the Shanghai Composite managed to gain around 1/3% by close of trade out on that front, but a big 2.25% down as well for the Hang Seng, though. So that went into some negativity. Also negative stints as well out in Europe. The CAC 40 is the biggest loser today, going down more than 1% out in France. So not necessarily a good day there. That has all translated into some negativity as well for the local index, which has gone down more than 1% this afternoon. The banking count is 1.8% weaker, so a big fall there for a lot of those, as of course we head towards that interest rates decision by the South African Reserve Bank. At least 25 basis point cut expected, should I say, according to a Reuters Bloomberg poll, should I say. APSA, on the other hand, themselves saying that perhaps another 50 basis point cut is to be expected by the South African Reserve Bank. This all comes on the back of course, that inflation number dropping to 2.1%, a 16-year low, almost 16 years, in fact, low for that figure. So certainly does tell you the story. They do have enough room, but will it help at all to get interest rates any lower at a time like this? We'll certainly see what the Reserve Bank thinks tomorrow. Of course, we'll have that for you live here on SABC News. So big falls on that front. Gold and platinum stocks, however, did manage to tick higher today, more than 2% up for the platinum counters, 1.33% higher for the gold indices. But resources overall, unfortunately, not doing too well, down 0.75%. Of course, yesterday we saw numbers coming out of BHP Billiton, who did actually beat estimates for somewhat as well. Even the iron ore production there coming out better than expected. Speaking of iron ore, onto the commodities board, only Brent crude really is seeing some major flaws today. That's gone down 1.33% of the major commodities that we follow. Of course, still sits at $43.74 a barrel. Cost questions, should I say, really around demand, still propping that market up and really altering just where the market will sit. But it seems to be sitting within a range between $40 and $45 a barrel. Does seem to be the norm at present. Platinum gaining some momentum, $8.90 against for an ounce there, while $1,858 for an ounce as well for gold, as it sits up nearly 1% to the good. In the local currency, slightly weaker this morning, but things have gotten a little bit better. We're saying slightly weaker at 16 Rand 43 against the US dollar. Let's remember, it started the year at 14 and went all the way past 18 as well because of COVID-19 and the drawdown coming through from the ratings agencies who had downgraded South Africa to non-investment grade. A full house of junk ratings meant that we had sustained weakness in the local currency as well, but it's beginning to prop up ever so slightly. Just above 19 Rand for the euro, and a pound is 20 Rand and 85 cents. Let's chat to Michael Traherne now from Vestact Asset Management as we get to unpack this picture just a little bit more. Michael, just in general, though, this market seems to be looking forward to something, not necessarily knowing what, but we do have some stimulus which may be on the way. Europe has agreed to it. The US seems to agree to some as well. Is that all going to help the market push itself back up to record levels?
Afternoon, Ira. Yes, so yesterday, positive momentum coming through on the news of that 750 billion euro stimulus package announced yesterday morning. That resulted in most global indices closing higher yesterday. Today, markets seem to be a bit more in a holding pattern. Part of that is due to US earnings season changing gear today. We have the monster in the terms of Microsoft reporting after markets. Microsoft's got a market cap of $1.6 trillion. So no doubt those numbers will move the Microsoft share price, which also change sentiment globally. And then, as you mentioned, on the local front, NPC deciding interest rates tomorrow, and no doubt that has an impact on our banking and retail stocks. So a bit of a holding pattern for today and tomorrow, I suspect.
You speak about the behemoth that is Microsoft, but what about the behemoth that is the biggest motor company, particularly not just in the United States, but seemingly globally by the looks of things? $300 billion, I think it's worth at present. Tesla, they're set to report as well today. And if they get another quarter of positive earnings, they swing into the S&P 500. And of course, Elon Musk getting that payday of $2.1 billion all seems right and well when it comes to Tesla.
Sure. Elon Musk and the team there seem like they can't do anything wrong. It's great to see, I don't know if we can call him a fellow South African, but at least his roots are here doing so well. I wouldn't mind a $2 billion payday. But yes, as you say, if Tesla reports positive numbers this evening, it means that they meet all the criteria for the S&P 500 to be included in that index. This is significant because it means that a whole bunch of buying activity will take place in the stock as indexes start to include, or as the index starts to include it in the overall weighting. And that will probably push the share price up even more in the short term. And that stock's up 7-fold over the last year. So it shows you how well it's done, and that's part of the reason for that massive payday that Elon Musk is set to receive.
Certainly a big payday there, but not a big payday, unfortunately, if you're in the retail space. South Africa's retail sales numbers going down 50% month on month. Bad numbers continue to flow.
Yes, so it's obviously in April we had the lockdown. Retail sales were down 50%. Not great to see. It is worth noting, though, that in May there was a nice rebound, up 74%. But Stats SA did make sure that they pointed out that for the last 3 months, if you add the retail sales together, we're down 20% compared to last year. That is to be expected. Lockdown obviously having a big impact. They do note that two significant areas where they're seeing or there's no sales is alcohol and tobacco, and that's quite a significant hit to the overall number as well. So not great, but there are some areas of hope. General retail seems to be doing quite well as people restock after those lockdowns that we had earlier in the year.
All right, if we continue on, of course, still a little bit of news happening, even on the equity space locally. Domino's Pizza, so Taste Holdings, earlier on in the year, around March it was, decided that they're actually going to liquidate the Domino's Pizza brand. But now they've decided to do a slight turnaround and decided, well, maybe we should just auction it off.
Yes, so all of that's linked together. And if we rewind to the end of 2019, Taste Holdings, who also owned Starbucks, they started selling off all of their brands. They managed to find someone to buy the master franchise for Starbucks. They couldn't find a master franchisor for Domino's in South Africa, and that's the result now. Is anything, all the stores that are company-owned are effectively being auctioned off. Auctioneers are busy saying that, if you want to get into the pizza game, you can buy a fully assembled a pizza shop on the cheap. Why don't you come have a look? And it is worth noting that the Taste Holdings origin is in Scooters Pizza. You might remember them from a few years ago, and all those Scooters Pizzas were rebranded to Domino's. And it's a bit sad to see that a pizza chain didn't make it.
Sure. All the struggles as well. Of course, they had Starbucks in their brand as well, which hasn't made it either, and certainly the license that they sold off there. Even the fish and chip company is one that they had to do away with. So unfortunately, not doing well. They're keeping their jewelry brand, as you make note of as well. Northwest Jewelers and Arthur Kaplan as well. So we'll see how things fare on that front. Very quickly, the Rand picture, slightly getting a little bit of strength there. Is that our own doing, or is that just really because of weakness perhaps in other markets?
It looks like it's more of a dollar weakness story, which translates into Rand strength. If you have a look at how the dollar's fared, the dollar basket, as they call it, against other currencies, it has been on the back foot for the last few days, and that's been good news for us. But as you were pointing out earlier in the show, the Rand's trending to stronger over the last few months, and long may that last. It's good news for keeping inflation levels low, and that's another reason why we could see an interest rate cut tomorrow. So as homeowners, fingers crossed that we see a cheaper interest rate for all of us.
Will certainly be interesting. We'll see how things fare tomorrow. Michael Traherne, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for it. That interest rates decision by the South African Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee will, of course, happen tomorrow. We'll have that for you live here on SABC News. We'll unpack that decision in full. Thank you so much for joining me as well here at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange.